Hello, welcome back to another CPaaSAA Talk. I'm Rob Curver, the founding partner of the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance. And with me today, I have Bertrand Pourcelot and Michael Abenhaim. And these guys are interesting because they both have platforms and they work with telcos. So we're going to talk about SP voice, service provider voice, the working with telcos and carriers that have their own stack. Bertrand, let me start with you. Welcome on this podcast. Why is SP voice still such a big topic in 2025? We still have all these BroadSoft and MetaSwitch installations, and telcos are still very much interested in having their own stack. And I know you have a bunch of customers as well. Why hasn't everybody just moved to the cloud and get it over with?
Well, hi Rob, hi Michael. Indeed. Well, we are lucky, that service provider voice is still a nice need as one of the key platform vendor, and the number of options have reduced over the last years with the consolidation. But voice remains a key critical foundation for carriers and service providers and for our day-to-day communication. Of course, messaging is growing undoubtedly, but voice remains a key foundation. And I would say voice digitization is also modernizing voice and creating, I would say, limitless capabilities around voice. So a key foundation, and maybe even more on mobile than fixed, because yes, fixed voice is, I would say, under erosion, as we all know. But then digitized voice and modern voice is a new path and a new limitless, I would say, opportunity.
Yeah. Michael, do you see that too at Ooma? I mean, you acquired a little company last year, right? So to double down on this, Ooma has a direct play, but also the indirect play. Do you see that same interest still over there?
I do, absolutely. Thanks, Rob and Bertrand. I absolutely agree with Bertrand's comments. SP Voice is definitely still around every aspect of what a service provider does. And not only from a wireless perspective or a wireline perspective, it is driving the conversational AI plays as the data from the voice becomes digitized, as Bertrand highlighted. On our side, all the offers that the partners are putting together essentially have in some point a SP voice. And what is happening in the market is that they're looking to have different flavors. So it's now become a verticalized offer, whether it is for an ISV solution that they're offering it, or whether it is for a specific end customer niche play, or whether it is for just a standardized regular customer that's looking for telephony for their business. So you still do see this. It's not going to change, and I don't think we're going to communicate in any other way apart from from the voice that we typically use. Of course, all the other mediums are still there. SMS, it's all growing very quickly, but it's intertwined, right? So it continues, right?
Yeah, and if I may add, I think the voice and telephony, using the old term, traditional term, is also blended, not only with other media and channels, but is blended with other type of services. I like to talk about, customer interactions in general. And very often I emphasize that SMEs, SMBs are much more, I would say, turned towards the external side of their companies, talking to prospects, to business, to customers, while larger corporation, of course, I'm making a generality here, but is also focusing more on optimizing the internal efficiency, internal communication of the organization. So that's where the teams and the video collaboration is really at the core, while for, I would say, SMBs, it's a lot about voice, being reachable, blending UCaaS and CCaaS, even if for them the CCaaS term is not well adapted, and I prefer customer interaction, external interaction. So this is a blended voice and a voice plus solution that I see where we see the most demand and the evolution of the demand.
Yeah. So you're both saying that AI is really changing the needs then, and the requirements from the operators, right? Because then they want to have it more control for certain verticals? And do you see that your customers, your partners, are then building on top of your platforms, or how does that work in practice?
Well, uh, I may start. I mean, maybe before AI, I think AI is one additional revolution or huge wave or tsunami. But after others, there's been internet, cloud, there's been mobile, smartphone, application, there has been API. So of course, this one is big, and maybe bigger than a few of the ones I mentioned before. But there were already a lot of demands from the SP voice players to have access to API, to be able to create differentiation, to add value, not just be a reseller of someone else. So I think they want some control. They want to know where it's hosted, but more than that, they want some control on some ways to differentiate. So not just be a reseller. I want to be able to choose where I'm investing to be different, to create value. It could be verticalization, it could be segmentation, online service, everything digitalized, or it could be a wide range of combination. So we see a number of providers, both fixed and mobile, who invest a lot in the automation, and they create value through facilitation, orchestration of services, combination to deliver a one-stop experience to the customer. And AI, I think, is one more wave on top of that, expanding very much the capabilities. But for the service provider and the carriers, it's okay. One additional capability to differentiate and to create more value. That's how we see it. And then it also depends a lot on the maturity of the end users, because not everyone is at the same maturity level in its digital transformation to adopt AI. So it's not after the same thing. It applies to the end users. It applies to the service provider as well.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think what it's done is that it's pushed the envelope in a number of areas. If you saw, cloud being a big revolution, to use Bertrand's words, in essence, it's driving more capability across every area that used to support the cloud. So the fiber, the data centers, the capability to transact and analyze, the software that's being run through. And what's happening is that it's creating new types of companies. These new types of companies are actually using the old legacy technology that were in specific vertical spaces like manufacturing or healthcare, and they're now integrating SP voice as one of the pieces. And at the same time, they're integrating AI by converting a lot of that data and pushing it through in those AI engines. Some are using, the standard AI engine. Some build and use their own LLMs. It depends which companies. But what's happening is they're now coming with new solutions to these verticalized, companies, and to secure additional business that they couldn't before, and make themselves differentiated. Like Bertrand said earlier, we're seeing one example of a sizable partner that essentially is a CPaaS player that is using our engine and our APIs to be able to build EMR intelligence, so electronic medical records intelligence, for their hospital and their type of healthcare clinics that they service. And they're trying to differentiate themselves very significantly compared to their competitors by using those mediums that I spoke to you a little bit about earlier, not only the SMS, not only the voice, but coming back in with intel that comes through from the data that's being housed in some database that they had before that wasn't necessarily being intelligently acted upon, and had corrective action and had predictive analytics and these types of things that were not necessarily being considered in the past, and how they should react to be able to correct and improve their business overall.
Right. So I hear a combination of control, right? Knowing where it runs and sits, which is an issue still, or even more maybe than 2 or 3 years ago, but also the flexibility and the ability to address certain verticals. And you mentioned healthcare, Michael. That's heavily regulated. It's a very complicated world to operate in. You're either a specialist or you don't play, right? So, are there more examples like that, those kind of verticals where you see this happening a lot?
I do on my end. I can share a little bit more. I'm seeing in the space of the automotive space, very much change happening. In the past, you'd have these tire changing, service, auto repair type stores that would walk in, and they would have a standardized telecom service, right? They had a phone, and they had maybe a recording solution, and they had an IVR that was standard. Today, what's happening is you've had these specialized ISVs that have created an entire solution that not only does the intake for appointment setting and changing and adjusting, and informs them on the tire that could be fit for their car as soon as they put that in. There's elastic intelligence that walks in. So there is not only that piece, but you see a background informational aspect that comes in, that they pull the data from the databases that they have. They use Intel, and they tell them, on average, your car would do 20,000 miles to be able to change the next, to get your next lubrication, and at the same time. So there is Intel that's coming in, and it's becoming a lot more. It's a lot easier for users that are in this, going to change their tires or changing their oil, to get, to understand, I should change it within 20,000 miles. I should get these types of tires because they're better for my specific car. So it's become easier for them to make decisions, right, overall.
And
we see. Sorry. We see use cases are maybe not yet fully industrialized, but in there. So it's still the infancy, I would say, of how it's maturing. So it's more POC and use cases where there are a mix of automation, leveraging voice digitization, and integration with a third-party application. So, which could be start quite simple from a transcription, and that's we have a demo case like that, where you transcript the call, then you do a call analysis, which is becoming more and more standard, correct? If the analysis is saying this was a hot call, I would say, or an urgent call, or a tricky call, okay, then log the summary in the CRM with a link to the full transcription, for example. If it's a regular call, I'm just logging a call log. So I'm automatized, taking into account some of the outcome of some of the automatic or AI processing. So it's on the one end simple. You say, okay, yeah, doesn't seem fantastic, but it's not fantastic, but it's making right decision, and it's really improve your own efficiency. I saw a demo yesterday of a case which was very interesting. So you place a call, you have a voice biometric recognition. From that, so it's not based on your caller number or this thing, it's your voice biometric recognition. Then it goes in the database. Then, whether you can store the voice information like that in database, let's see. But that was the demonstration, okay? And then it gets your last order, and the restaurant would say it was a delivery stuff. Would you like to order same thing as that was, it proposed you the list of what you ordered, the last 3 orders, and propose you that automatically, and then you can go fully automatized and digital. So of course, maybe there are risks of intrusion or fraud, but apparently it's quite robust, this type of voice biometrics recognition. And then, of course, anyway, it delivers to your usual address by default. So there are a lot of checks. So it's a way to do really a full digital customer journey and ordering process. Same with appointment. This appointment stuff now more common are really in real life, okay? Automatize appointment, whether it's in the health sector or others.
I like
That's
how
a few use cases.
it shows the blurring of the boundaries, right, between what we traditionally called UCaaS or CCaaS or CPaaS,
Yeah.
because what you're talking about is really all of these things come together,
Yeah.
and
And
the
you
end
know, I think the good news is it doesn't have to fall in a category anymore,
right,
because this category was product driven, correct? It was not need driven or problem solving driven. It was a category. Oh, I have this product for you, or I have this product for you. Okay.
yeah. Yeah, and now you're building solutions. So how does that work? How does the interaction go between you, let's say, as the platform provider, and the partner, the CSP, the carrier, the telco, that then works with that? Do you work together in these sorts of projects, or can they do a lot of that themselves? How does that work
Well, on our side, the experience is that it really much depends on the nature of the partner. Some
Mhm.
large partner or highly technical partner, so it's not only about the size, really want to add value there and go into the use case and the real application and problem solving application. Some others would just ask us to, come with some solution. So sometimes we really work hand in hand. Someone will just deliver the capabilities and the partner is doing the job. So there's no really a rule there. And I think that's maybe where the model need also to mature in terms of what's the ecosystem and what are the different roles. Because sometimes there's a channel, in between the end customer and the service provider. Then what the position of the channel is, the one who should know his customer best, correct? And usually he does. Then shouldn't he be the one to create the value? But does the service provider allow for him to create the value? What are the skills? Was he an IT reseller? Was he a telecom reseller? He has to change also his own role, skill, and position. And what's the business model, the value sharing between all these parties? So that's what needs to mature more and more, correct? Now we have POCs, we have, of course, also concrete cases, but it is today a bit on demand, ad hoc business model and so on. And it has to really mature, in my opinion.
Yeah, we see the same, by the way. We are, from our side, depends the type of partner that it is. And those partners have limited capabilities, every single one of them. And they're trying to figure out, where do I add on specific skill sets? And those skill sets are typically, development skill sets that they didn't necessarily have before if they were resellers. Often what they do is they come to us and ask us, hey, can I use your software development teams? Can I use your professional services for implementation? Can I do deployment? What's happening is there is a clear need to become an extension as a sizable solution partner of your partners. And to do that, you have to be able to be ahead of where they are at, and you have to be sizable enough so that you can support not only the software development piece, the deployment, the orchestration, the integration, potentially sometimes the billing aspect. And what's happening is they come to you often for AI guidance, because you're seeing it across the industry and they're not necessarily doing that. Of course, when you talk to a very large service provider, they have teams, very sizable teams. It just takes longer to build, right? That is what we're seeing overall in this area.
Yeah. Do you see regional differences, Michael? Because you have partners across the globe. Is it different in the Americas or APAC or Europe, or is it more or less the same trend everywhere?
In my opinion, it's not the same trend everywhere, and it's definitely in the Americas. There is a tendency to become an expert in one area and try to do that the best way, and look to others that are expert in other areas to sort of like bring that in. So there's a lot of this ecosystem partnership for a lookout, I'll say it, in at least North America. And then when you look at other areas where potentially they have cheaper labor and they can get skill sets is available, because if you're looking at India, or you're looking at Mexico, there's the skill set for development and there's a skill set for a lot of this AI tech. So what's happening is they typically in those areas, they'll in-house, right? They're like, all right, how can I hire the next development skill that can actually develop my tools that I need to be able to get to my full-blown solution? In North America, and at least from what I've seen in Europe, they're looking for a tertiary party or a third party to come in and be the expert in AI, or be the expert in deployment, and be the expert. Sort of like, give me local hands, give me software development skills that I didn't have in this area. What's interesting is, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, some of these healthcare ISV players, they're coming to us and they're saying, I know healthcare. I'm an expert in this area. I know all the compliance, all the regulatory piece. I know, how it works, how the ordering. This is what I do. I'm a CRM player. I need your telecom experience, and can you guide me with what's going on in the AI space? This is what we typically see. So it's sort of like a third-party model. So what we're adding and doing is essentially we're developing the ecosystem, the marketplace ecosystem that we have around the collaboration solutions, so that we can make sure that we have all the expertise, so that these players would essentially tuck in some of those solutions and do an integration. Sometimes we do the integration, sometimes they can. So we are, I'd say, in a learning phase around making sure that we can bring in as the right parties for them to integrate and provide a full-blown solution to the end customers.
And Bertrand, you have you're mostly active in Europe, right? Not entirely, but a lot of your larger
most of our base is in Europe, with a few exceptions, like in Latin America, Brazil, Australia, and Africa. But let's say it's EMEA plus.
The nice thing about Europe, we have 27 countries in Europe, right? And they're all different.
Yes, they're already all different. So there's already difference from north to south and from to west to east. So I mean, obvious stuff, the North is so mobile. It's mobile centric, and even maybe mobile only. It's interesting how even some traditional services mapped to a mobile experience can look already very innovative. And also recording a mobile call and having a custom attendance services or mobile call integration into the enterprise systems. Nobody is used to that in many other regions or countries. You have a fixed telecom, mobile telecom. Already between the two is a bit of silo. Then sometimes integration of the fixed with the enterprise system, but of the mobile, not so often. So a number of things which may not seem like revolutionary, they are quite innovative already. So very mobile in the Nordics. Also, we see in emerging markets in general, but especially also Latin America, the omnipresence of WhatsApp. So when you do want to do some customer interaction, etc., you need to tick the WhatsApp box. So you need to have some level of integration. So and our approach is to allow to move from voice to chat to WhatsApp, back and forth to optimize your processing and extend your reach. So that's from a more end user point of view. But then in terms of what the players require, in fact, some of them want really a turnkey solution from us. They say, okay, we want the full integrated pack, and we plug it in our BSS, blah, 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 and sell, brand sell. Others want more toolbox. And that's where, as a vendor, the challenge is, I would say, you need to be able to have a solution that is, on the one hand, a toolbox that you can customize. And we talk about a customizable by design platform. So it's not us who just do custom developments, because we are not a custom development or professional services house. We are a product vendor, but provide customizable by design, so that you can really create value, etc., if you wish. And at least for some solutions, and our focus is on SMB type of end users, where we try integrate the turnkey solution as much as possible, make it easier for the SMB, because I still believe that the cloud, the APIs, and the software integration and everything. One of the capabilities from the earlier days is making available to SMB solution that would have been reserved to large corporation earlier on. You take advanced IPBX, you take an advanced contact center, you take an advanced conferencing, all the enterprise system, and you pay an integrator to integrate them, and you change them every 15 years. Okay, that was like that 20 years ago, maybe 10, 12. And with cloud, with API, with all the new technology, and even more now with low code, no code, with workflow automation, you can do even much better. But you can do a much better job towards SMB. So not only they would benefit for similar capabilities as larger enterprise, but even better, I would say.
That's interesting. I have one final question, and that's so really looking ahead. We talked about AI and about all this flexibility and the verticalizations and the importance of adapting. Looking ahead to the next, say, 12 months, what do you think the biggest challenge is for these telcos, these carriers that are still sitting on a more traditional, you just mentioned the old way of doing it, Bertrand, those traditional technology stacks. What's the biggest challenge for them or something to work on?
Interesting. I think first is to be very careful with possible cost or risk of inaction, because we have a saying in French. I don't know the translation, but maybe someone will help me. Like, if you put a frog in a boiling water, it will not even jump out. It would just die in the boiling water as she gets hotter, because it goes step little by little, and you're just dying. Okay, so I think you can see that. That must be in English a similar say. So I think that's the potential risk or cost of inaction. The provider have to be, I would say, well aware of and consider, and then revisit their strategy, assess where they sit, where they want to differentiate, where are their strengths, where they are in their digital transformation themselves, and where they will add more value going further, and then choose the right partner for that. Correct? There's no good partner by definition. Based on this analysis, select the right partner, and we position as Enreach for Service provider as a partner-friendly player that we want to enable with our customizable by design platform. Allows the service provider to create value and differentiate as much as he can or want in the market. Of course, with the mobile flavor, which is something we have always focused on, and with the ability to plug in existing infrastructure, because you need to be agile to deliver value-added services all along. So it has to be future-proof in terms of partnership model. And the partnership model is not just the technology, very important, the APIs, the openness, and the ability to work with an open ecosystem that don't create lock-ins, but also in terms of future-proof business model. Right. So you share the value so that it's can be, I would say, a joint investment for the long term.
Michael, anything to add to that?
Sure. On my end, I think it's an inflection point right now in the next, I'd say 12 months. If you make no action, then you'll be losing customers. Pretty much, that's a guarantee. And as your customers' contracts, are in renewal mode, they're going to be asking you the questions that are very clear around, are you AI ready? What are you offering to me? What is the solution? How is this going to make my operations better? Because they themselves have to compete in their own verticalized solution, right? If you're, if you're any kind of, a healthcare facility, you want to be the one that has the latest technology so that everybody uses that and comes to you because you're faster, better, quicker in everything that you can do. Now, what I see it is that it's opportunistic, right? There are going to be a number of service providers that are going to be out there that are going to run faster than others, and they're going to customize better with more tools and put a strategy in place to go win certain business areas that they didn't have before. So it's not only the risk of loss of your existing base, but it is also an opportunity for some of them, pardon me, to make some very attractive moves to grow their business. So you're seeing shifts right now in the market for some players that are targeting that were not necessarily in the public sector, right? And they now are very actively making changes so that they can become and have all these different solutions. Some are targeting industries. Some are actually, they've decided to bring on monstrous development teams because they themselves want to have just the tech on their own, and they want to control, the solutions and the whole underlying process and workflow. Some are focusing on governance because they're too scared of what this can do, right? I've seen a whole bunch of entities that the first thing they state is they come in is, how do I internalize the solution, right? How do I control every aspect of this so that this does not take my intelligence and the IP that exists in my organization and my service provider outside of the industry? So there is the control effect. There is, how do I use this as an opportunity to grow? There is how do I retain my customer base and figure this out? And how do I partner with the right partner so that I can put a strategy in place that will take me, like Bertrand said very well, the future mode of operation that will be a success, and retain my business and grow it, right? This is what I see in the market.
Interesting times. I look forward to talking to you again in 6 or 12 months, see what happened. And in the meantime, we'll be covering this subject. It's one of our topics at CPaaSAA 25 in September, our yearly event. So I hope to see the both of you there as well, and we can continue this conversation. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.